Hello everyone, this is Suroj here. Welcome you all to my channel. Today I will discuss about AWS Lambda and its features. See here, few points are written here about AWS Lambda. So what is Lambda? Lambda is a serverless compute service. So EC2 is one of the compute services in AWS. So Lambda is like that, but it is serverless. That means it is managed by AWS. So we do not need to do anything to manage AWS Lambda. No need to provision and manage servers. You can see it is written pay only for the compute time. So only when the Lambda function will be running, you have to be billed for that duration only. No charge when code is not executing. When your Lambda function is not getting executed at that time, even if your code is written in any Lambda function, at that time that Lambda function will not be charged. Automatic scaling according to traffic. Unlike AWS EC2 instance, the Lambda function is automatically scaled according to the traffic. But in case of EC2 instance, we have to set up auto scaling group, then desired capacity, maximum capacity, minimum capacity, everything we need to mention, and after that it will be scaled according to the traffic, right? And if you see the next point is it is highly available. So Lambda function is highly available. Fine, because it is managed by AWS and AWS will take care of all the things. If one Lambda function fails, another Lambda function will be launched immediately. Next is it can be called from another AWS services like S3 DynamoDB API gateway. Like from S3 bucket, whenever any object will be created in a particular bucket or some objects will be deleted from a particular bucket, for any event in an S3 bucket, then any Lambda function can be called. So likewise in DynamoDB also, and in case of API gateway, we can call Lambda function. In the backend of any API gateway, we can set Lambda function. That means whenever we will be calling the API gateway, the Lambda function will be triggered. Fine. So these are the features of Lambda function, or the some important points about Lambda function you can see here. So now I will go to AWS console and will show you what AWS Lambda function actually is. Let me go here. So you can see this is the Lambda homepage. So right now I will create one function, author from scratch. So I will name it as my Lambda function. Fine. And runtime I will choose that is Node.js. I will write code using Node.js, that is 16.x version. Fine. And the architecture is as it is. And permission you can see. So see here, by default Lambda will create an execution role with permission to upload logs to Amazon CloudWatch logs. You can customize this default role later when adding triggers. Fine. So three options are there, you see. So one role we need to attach with this Lambda function. Create a new role with basic Lambda function. Basic Lambda function, basic permission means upload logs to CloudWatch. So if we click this, so AWS will create one role with CloudWatch logs permission, and will attach this role to this Lambda function, and we can use any existing role. See here, if I click here, many existing roles are there for Lambda function. And create new role from AWS policy template. So AWS policy template also we can create some roles for this Lambda function. So for now what I will do, I will create a new role with basic Lambda permissions. I will keep it as it is so that AWS can create one for that particular Lambda function. Fine. We'll go to advanced setting. If you see here, if I enable code signing, so use code signing configurations to ensure that the code has been signed by an approved source and has not been altered since signing. So that is not required. If we want to sign the code written inside that Lambda function, then we need to choose this option. So this is not required. So next one is enable function URL. Use function URLs to assign HTTP endpoints to your Lambda function. So here you can see, if I enable this, and we need to define few parameters. So according to that, using one HTTP or HTTPS URL, we can call our Lambda function. Fine. So we can enable tag also for that lambda function if I enable this. So another point is enable VPC. So one important point regarding this one is that if I click on this VPC, you see nothing is selected. So this is default VPC. If I select on this is default VPC means if I select this VPC, I need to choose another subnet. See, I have chosen 3 subnet like this. We are enabling VPC. That means the lambda function which is going to be created, that will be created inside this VPC. So from outside the VPC, the lambda function can't be called or can't be accessed. Fine. Here you can see security group we can create. Let me choose this EC2SG like this. So one important thing is that if these subnets are public subnets also, the lambda function will not be accessed by anyone outside of the VPC. So for that what we need to do? We need to launch this lambda function within a private subnet of that particular VPC, and using NAT gateway we can access the lambda function within that private subnet. Fine. So for now we are not going to enable this VPC, so the lambda function will be created outside the VPC. Fine, and we can access the lambda function from any network. Now what I will do, I will click on create function. See, the lambda function is now created successfully. Fine. Okay, you see index.js file has been created and few lines of codes are written here. Fine. So I will go to the configuration page. I will click on permissions. See here, this role has been created with this lambda function. Fine. So what is the permissions attached with this lambda, means attached with this lambda execution role? See here, Amazon CloudWatch logs 3 actions, 2 resources. So resources with this account anything, and allow logs, create log group, and for this particular lambda function create log stream and put log events. These 3. Fine, these 3 actions are attached with this particular lambda execution role. Fine. Now I'll go to this code. So I will modify this and I will remove this response, and instead of this response I will write hello world. That means what it will do, this function will be called, export.handler function will be called, and what will be the output? It will return hello world, nothing else. Now what I need to do, I need to click on deploy. It's now deployed successfully. Now click on test. One event we need to create, right? So let me name this event as test event. Fine. In the input I am not going to write anything, it will be blank JSON file. Save. The test event has been saved. Now I will click on test. It has run, the lambda function has run. See, the response is hello world. From where it is getting the hello world, it is returning hello world. Fine. Now what is this event? So event is nothing but the input within that test event. See, this is the test event, right? So if I configure this, now the event is blank. Now if I write name here, name, this is Suroj, right? Now if I save this and I will test this, see, still it is showing hello world. Why? Because if you see, we are returning hello world, we are not returning event, right? So if I return event, what it will show? Deploy, then test. See, the response is name Suraj. So whatever we have pushed into that event, fine, it is showing like this. Now another thing, I am passing another variable or another parameter, that is context. Fine, what is this? Let me print this, console.log context. Fine. So it will print context and then it will return the event which is the input to that test event. Fine. So I'll click on deploy. Now click on test. See, this is the output of console.log context. So what is this? This is the information regarding that lambda function. You can say the system information of that particular lambda function. So if you see, memory limit in MB is 128 MB. Fine. So we need to check that. I will check here in the configuration page, general configuration. See, this is 128 MB. Fine. Go to code. See, this is 128 MB. If we want to print the memory limit of this lambda function, then what we need to write? So that will be nothing but console.log context dot memory limit in MB. This is the attribute for that context parameter, and I'll comment this out. Right now, click on deploy, test. See, now the output is this. So info is 128 MB. Fine. So the another question is like, if I rename the file name index.js, okay, so what will be the output? So let me rename this file name myfile.js. Fine. Now it has been changed. Click on deploy. It's now deployed. Now everything is okay. So the expected output should be 128 because the memory limit is MB. Memory limit in MB is 128, or the RAM you can say for that function is 120 MB. So click on test. See, we are getting some error response. See here. So our file name is myfile.js. Now if you go down, see here, runtime setting, runtime is node.js 16. Now the handler is index.handler. Fine. So index.handler means from where the index.handler has come. This is the file name without .js extension, and then this is .handler. So that means file name without extension .handler. That will be the handler name. So I'll go to edit, and this will be my file. Right. So because our current file name is my file, so my file.handler. Let me save this. Now let me test it again. Test. See, this is the response, and this is the output 128. And another thing, if you want to change the memory of that particular lambda function, then click on this configuration, general configuration, go to edit, and from here you can edit it. Fine. And you can see set memory to between 120 MB and 10,240 MB, and according to this RAM the CPU will also be increased or decreased proportionally. Fine. That we do not need to manage by ourselves. That will be managed by AWS itself. And the timeout is maximum timeout maybe 15 minutes. 0 means this is the default one is 3 seconds, and it can go up to 15 minutes. Fine. So I'll cancel this. I'll go to code, my file. Now what I want to print the name only which we have pushed in the event. So return event dot name. Click on deploy, test. See, it is now showing the value only, not the whole JSON file. Fine. That's it for now today. If you really like this video, kindly like, share, comment and subscribe. Bye bye.